Welcome back, everybody. This is Billy with Full Time Fantasy, and we're about to kick off part 3 of the FFWC Video Showdown. This will be highlighting rounds 9 through 13 of this best ball draft that happened about a month ago. So there has been some changes. So you may see some people who were taken maybe earlier than you would imagine at this time of the year, or maybe later at this time of the year. But this draft did complete itself about a month ago. So there have been some news that has shifted, but nonetheless, these analysts have definitely still given their 2 cents. So thank you to the FFFaceoff and Anthony Cervino, Fantasy Pros and Pat Fitzmaurice, Fantasy Alarm with Jonathan Impemba and Andrew Cooper, Best Bell Fantasy with Bradley Stalder. I always want to say Best Ball there when I read that, Bradley. The 33rd team and Josh Larky. Josh putting together a fire team over there at the 33rd team as well. A huge thank you as well to Bob Harris at Footballdiehards, Theo Gremminger of the GOAT District, Abib Agbatoba and team over at the 1st and 15. We have the Podfather, Matt Kelly at Player Profiler, Adam Krotworth at Draft Sharks, Jon Jeune at FFDiagnostics, and of course yours truly for Full Time Fantasy. Part 3 about to kick off right now.
With the first pick in round 9, the Fantasy Line team selects Justin Fields, quarterback of the Chicago Bears. That's right, we double tapped the quarterback position here. Trey Lance in round 8, Justin Fields in round 9. Same exact reason we like Lance. We're kind of in on Fields here as well. Great mobility upside. Need that rushing upside to really have a solid fantasy ceiling. We're also a little bit bullish on the offense this year as well. Sure, the offensive line has some concerns, but we have a new coaching system there in Chicago and a new offensive coordinator, Luke Getsy, who understands how to use a mobile quarterback. If you look back at his Mississippi State days as the offensive coordinator, quarterback in that team ran for 1,200 yards. Now, not expecting Justin Fields to run for 1,200 yards, but last year he put on display an average that would have put him close to 650 yards rushing last season. We like Darnell Mooney. We like Cole Kmet. We even think David Montgomery continues to be a solid back for him, both out of the backfield as a pass catcher and as a runner. We're looking for Fields to take that next step here in year 2.
With the second pick in the 9th round, the GOAT District selects Kareem Hunt. We were happy to get Kareem Hunt here. He was the 31st running back selected in this draft. There's obvious fears about the Deshaun Watson situation, but we're talking about an extremely talented player. Last year, he averaged 13.8 points per game in PPR in only 8 games played. The season before, he was running back 10 overall. If anything were to happen to Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt would be an every week top 12 play at the running back position. He has terrific two-way ability. He's a threat as a receiver. He's very good around the goal line. And he has tremendous upside whenever Deshaun Watson is on the field. We were happy to get him structurally as our RB2.
With the 3rd pick in the 9th round, Fantasy Football Diagnostics selects New York Jets wide receiver Garrett Wilson. I said in the last one I was going to have to get a little creative here with the wide receiver situation, try to add some more juice to this position group here on top of Justin Jefferson and Deebo Samuel and the recently acquired Tim Patrick. I went with Garrett Wilson here. I actually was leaning either him or Robert Woods. Robert Woods I do have slightly higher in my rankings. I just felt like from a best ball perspective, I really want those ceiling games that come with a rookie with the pedigree of Garrett Wilson, the 10th overall pick in the draft. There's the range of outcomes are wider for Garrett Wilson. I think that he competes for second on the team in targets behind Elijah Moore, competing with Corey Davis and a newly revamped tight end group there for some targets, not to mention the backside of the backfield either. So, Garrett Wilson, curious to see what kind of role he gets in this Jets offense. Could probably, see most of his time outside and being used as, kind of the deep option, but also put in some yards after catch situations as well. So really like Garrett Wilson, not just because of the green and white on my hat or, that thing in the back behind me there, but, I think he really adds some juice to this receiving core here that I'm building on this squad. So definitely happy to add him here. Like I said, was leaning Robert Woods, who ends up going a little bit later. So The chances of him coming back, we're not likely, obviously. So there's that.
In the 9th round of the FFWC Best Ball Video Showdown draft, I targeted Michael Gallup. I wanted a piece of this Dallas Cowboys offense. I wanted a piece of this Dallas Cowboys passing attack, and Michael Gallup fits the bill. Now, I know what you're going to say. He really hasn't produced in each of the past 2 seasons. Obviously, last year, utter disappointment with the injuries. Back in 2020, wide receiver 48 in fantasy points per game. So why do I like Michael Gallup? If you go back to the last time that Michael Gallup was a starter in 2 wide sets, when was it? Before CeeDee Lamb with Amari Cooper back in 2019. Well, in that 2019 season, Michael Gallup was a wide receiver 17 in fantasy points per game. Fast forward to this year, he's expected to be, when healthy, a starter in 2 wide sets alongside CeeDee Lamb. So I'm expecting Michael Gallup, once he's healthy, which is expected to be sometime in September, coming off the knee, which means he's going to miss the PUP list, to be a pretty damn good value in the 9th round as the number 2 receiver in Dallas. We know Dallas is going to throw the football. We know that all the targets can't go to Dalton Schultz, and they all can't go to CeeDee Lamb. And if Michael Gallup comes back healthy and he looks the part, we know Dak Prescott and Michael Gallup have an existing rapport together. So I'm banking on Michael Gallup coming back healthy. I'm banking on Michael Gallup missing the PUP list and returning in September. And I'm counting on Michael Gallup returning back to his 2019 form now that he will be once again a starting wide receiver in 2 wide sets for the high-flying passing attack of the Dallas Cowboys.
The 905, the 33rd team selects Skye Moore. He's the only ascending player on the Chiefs offense. Travis Kelce turns 33 in October, and he just had the lowest efficiency metrics, target shares of nearly his entire career. MVS, career high target share of 14%, career catch rate below 50% playing with Aaron Rodgers. We know what he is at this point. Miko Hardman is a certified bust. And then Juju Smith-Schuster's efficiency, actual production's been precipitously declining since 2018. The PFF receiving grades, the yards per route run, it's all pretty atrocious for someone that some out there think is going to be the wide receiver 1 in this offense. I think that's laughable. And with Skye Moore, he's really, really good at football. In high school, he played quarterback and cornerback. He got a scholarship to Western Michigan. They said, we'll try you out at receiver, and he ends up leading the team in receiving yards as a true freshman. And after only 2.5 years in college, he declared early for the draft and got round 2 draft capital. The guy is really, really good at football.
With pick 906, the football diehards add Patriots running back Damien Harris. For all the interest in Mac Jones after his standout rookie season, it's fair to say Harris was the more instrumental player when it came to making the Patriots offense work last season. In total, Harris racked up 929 rushing yards and 15 touchdowns on 202 carries. He added 18 catches for 132 yards in 15 games. He became only the second New England player with at least 15 rushing touchdowns in one season, joining LeGarrette Blount, who had 18 in 2016. The Patriots lost running back in free agency with Brandon Bolden leaving for Vegas. They retained receiving specialist James White, who's coming off injury, but of greater concern to Harris investors would be Ramondre Stevenson. Another concern, touchdown regression. It's coming, and it will likely relegate Harris to a flex role at best. That said, still seems to be quality depth in round 9.
Hey everybody, Billy Muzio back with Full-Time Fantasy, and I am on the clock in the 9th round with my 7th pick in the 9th round. I take Bobby Trees. Bobby Trees, Robert Woods is on a new team, Tennessee Titans, but we don't know exactly how this passing game is going to break down. Apparently, Treylon Burks is having a lot of issues in camp. He hasn't been able to hit the field due to asthma. He's also having trouble just staying on the field as of right now. So Bobby Trees might be actually in for a pretty large workload here this year in 2022. He has been a top 20 receiver from 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020. Now, I don't expect him to be top 20 this year, but can he be top 40? I think that's within the realm of possibilities. And as my wide receiver 6 off the board, or I should say, he's wide receiver 6 for my team, and wide receiver 51 off the board. He presented himself to be a value. He's been going in drafts at FFWC as wide receiver 44, so I got him at seven wide receiver positions later, and wide receiver 44 was selected a full round earlier here, and that was Alan Lazard, who went off the board to the Football Diehards at the 8-7. So happy to get Robert Woods here as my wide receiver 6. Should also help me kind of stay competitive as DeAndre Hopkins is suspended for the first 6 games. And I'm excited to have Bobby Trees on the team. Thank you.
At pick 908, team first and 15 chooses Seattle Seahawks running back Rashad Penny. Dio, this was your pick. Why Penny? Why not go someplace else?
I mean, to be honest with you, this was kind of a selfish pick. I really wasn't even looking at team build or roster construction. I'm just a Penny fan. I was a Penny fan even last year, just that draft capital. He had these injury concerns, but I feel like just his profile is somebody that can be a big-time running back. We kind of see how he ended the year last year. He was like a top 3 running back in those last 6 weeks. And now with Chris Carson still out of the fold, I know they drafted a rookie, but I think Penny might still have that job. And if he can kind of slightly produce, even if he just marginally produces the way he did last year, I think that type of value in the 9th round is pretty valuable. So
100% agree. I think I'm, with you, with him likely being the starter there. The offense isn't the greatest, but he has that big play potential. Love that pick there.
Now, I mentioned earlier that I hated the Tom Brady pick. I also didn't like my Matthew Stafford pick. Matthew Stafford's likely to regress in the touchdown department this year. I love the 40-plus touchdowns. I had that in my there was just stars in my eyes. Like, the 40 touchdowns. 40 touchdowns. Meanwhile, Carr and Cousins went 60 picks later. 40, 50. But they went later, right? I mean, right? Kirk Cousins is going to be better than Matthew Stafford this year. He's going to have Matthew Stafford's coaching staff. They're going to be even more up-tempo, pass-heavy in Minnesota than they will be in Los Angeles. What am I doing taking Matthew Stafford at the 105 when Kirk Cousins goes at 140, Derek Carr goes at 139? Billy had it right. He waited until pick 127 to go quarterback. I should have waited on quarterback like Billy. I regret it. If I could go back in time, I could wipe this Tom Brady and Matthew Stafford pick off the board, and I would have gone Chase Edmonds. I would have gone James Cook. Oh, God. Oh, my God. But, these are very solid quarterbacks. The 2 best quarterbacks in the NFC, just in looking at wins and just efficiency numbers as passers, just factoring out the rushing. Super solid picks in best ball, knowing, hey, I'm going to have my 2 quarterbacks and I can move on. Whereas other managers are working with more speculative quarterbacks. Mahomes, Winston, Murray, Trevor Lawrence, Josh Allen, Goff. It's a lot more speculative with a lot of these quarterback combinations than Brady, Stafford. So I want to give myself some leeway, some rationale for the picks. They weren't the worst picks, but I mean, if I could go back, the saving grace with the Stafford pick, the Tom Brady pick was just egregious. If I could go back, if you told me I could get Stafford at the 105, which was ADP arbitrage also, and then Cousins at the 135, I'd be very happy. Totally happy with that. Great, right? Totally fine. Because, Brady was available. After Brady, Edmonds was available. There's a bunch of running backs, a bunch of upside running backs I would have loved to have. Edmonds, Penny. Oh, man. But once Stafford was still available and I picked him, then it was Cordarrelle Patterson. It was Stevenson. It was many more flawed running backs. Still, though, in a vacuum, would rather have James Cook over Stafford. The saving grace for me is on the next pick. I did get Marquez Valdez-Scantling. Stay tuned for that analysis.
Adam Krautwurst of DraftSharks.com here, and it's back to running back for me at the 9-10 turn here. Pick 10 in the 9th round. I took Cordarrelle Patterson, my third running back of the draft. Took him in the 9th round. Love it. Draft Sharks has him as the 26th overall running back, and I got him at RB 34 in this draft, which you love to get that value when you're going with a hero RB build. I now have Saquon Barkley, Tony Pollard, Cordarrelle Patterson. Kind of popped last year for the Falcons, one of the biggest surprises of the year. Kind of tailed off last year with a high ankle sprain, but they only added Tyler Algier and Damien Williams. Probably shouldn't be competition for him, especially in the passing game for a team that's going to be playing from behind. So love to see a running back that's involved in the passing game for a team that'll be losing a lot of games. I think Vegas has them winning 5 games this year. So really like that pick in a hero RB build. And let's see what I'm able to do in the next round.
Hey everyone, Pat Fitzmaurice of Fantasy Pros, and with pick 9-11 in the FFWC Video Showdown, I went with Tyler Boyd, Bengals wide receiver, and I'm still playing catch up a little bit at wide receiver after opening running back with Dalvin Cook and Najee Harris. So Boyd is my 5th wide receiver, and I'm starting to feel a little bit better about that group. And he's kind of a natural guy for me to target after taking Joe Burrow in the 8th round. So, couldn't get the Jamar Chase Burrow stack, couldn't get the T Higgins Burrow stack, but taking the next best thing here. Tyler Boyd, who I think, despite Chase and Higgins, seeing, understandably they're going to big target shares, but Boyd is going to carve out a niche for himself too. And I think he's going to pop a couple of times minimum this year. So Tyler Boyd at 9-1-1.
With the 9-12, the 108th pick overall, Best Bell Fantasy podcast selects Ramondre Stevenson, running back 35 overall. And that's a running back value. I tell you what, 94th is his ADP, but getting him at 108, I'll take that. 5th in juke rate among all running backs is Ramondre Stevenson. Running back 19 yards created per attempt. Running back 11 in fantasy points per target. And he had 2 top 6 running back weeks last year. And both of those games were below 57% of snaps. So he doesn't need full complement of snaps. And I don't expect him to. But given the build that I have right now with Breece Hall as my running back 1, now I'm going to fill in the rest of my roster with spike week type of running backs and hope that fills in enough. Now, at the 10-1 or the 109th pick overall, I selected Chase Claypool. And Claypool's coming off comebacks. He's coming off a season where, it was disappointing, but he still was wide receiver 33 in fantasy points per game, which was higher than his rookie year, wide receiver 35. He's also a value. I drafted at 109. He's usually being drafted here at 93 overall, so over a round of value. He has had 3 top 12 weeks in his 31 games, and he's due for touchdown regression. He only had a couple touchdowns last season, but he had 9 in 2020 during his rookie season. He was 19th in unrealized air yards last season, but 5th during his rookie season. He really makes his money down the field, and as we saw, Ben Roethlisberger couldn't really throw far down the field. But now he gets Mitchell Trubisky, who was 8th in deep ball attempts in 2018 and 12th in 2019. I expect him to air it out a little bit more, and I like the pick and upside of Chase Claypool and Ramondre Stevenson at these spots.
Pat Fitzmaurice of Fantasy Pros here, and with pick 10-02 in the FFWC Video Showdown, Kenneth Walker, rookie running back, Seattle Seahawks, and I'm pretty excited about the potential value here. Yes, the Seattle offense is going to stink. Yes, Rashad Penny was great late last season and enters training camp as the running back 1 for Seattle. But Kenneth Walker, pretty clearly the second best running back prospect in this year's class behind Breece Hall, and a very good prospect overall. Terrific runner. If you watched him play at Michigan State, you'll know this guy is just a stick of dynamite. I'm really excited about that. And we know Rashad Penny has had health issues throughout his career. What are the chances that he can stay healthy throughout 2022? I think I'd be willing to bet against that. So Kenneth Walker as a high upside swing at the running back position here in the 10th round.
Hey guys, Adam Krautwurst from DraftSharks.com. And I'm on the clock again at the 10.3 in this video showdown draft. And I took running back James Cook. Absolutely love this pick. Might be one of my favorite picks of the whole draft. Took him as the RB37. I'm also in a recent high stakes draft. I saw him go in the 7th round. He's the pass catching back in Buffalo. They took him as the 3rd running back off the board in the 2nd round of that draft. The Bill, he's going to be their pass catching back. They wanted to add a pass catching back in J.D. McKissick. That didn't happen. They went ahead and drafted one in James Cook. They don't believe in Devin Singletary. Since drafting him, they've also drafted Zach Moss. Now James Cook. Cook will definitely be the leader in the passing game. New offensive coordinator there. Wants to get the running back involved more. They want yards after catch. They want explosive playmakers. James Cook is going to be an awesome player in this Bills offense. So I took another running back there to go along with my hero RB build. Next round, I'm looking for maybe one more running back, and then I'll probably move on from the position. So let's see what happens next.
Now, with the 10th pick in the Player Profiler Video Showdown Championships of the world famous FFWC Fantasy Football World Championship Video Showdown Player Profiler Championships of the world, I took Marquez Valdez-Scantling. I was very pleased to get him. I couldn't believe he was available. He's on the Chiefs, in case no one figured this out. Is this news not reached the fantasy community that he's a Chief? And he got paid a lot of money, like $20+ million. He's going to be out there. He's not necessarily what you would call good, right? He's flawed. He's one of the worst route runners in the league, but he's fast and explosive. So I think they're going to try to cater to his strengths, put him out there on double moves, not ask him to be a technician. That's okay. He's not Tyreek Hill in any way, shape, or form. But we're talking about a 10th round pick who's going to be a starting wide receiver with explosiveness tethered to Patrick Mahomes. I'll take it.
At 10:05, team first to 15 chooses Kenny Galladay, New York Giants wide receiver. Abby, this was your pick. Why go Kenny Galladay here?
So again, we keep harping back to the 3 wide receiver format plus a flex. Wide receivers are flying off the board. So, I was really eyeing Kenny Galladay or Rondale Moore. I think for me, Kenny Galladay probably has a higher ceiling of the two. And also a little bit easier of a stack to accomplish. You guys know I love stacking the Giants this year.
Yeah.
Coming in. So that Kenny Galladay pick is something that we can add to later in the draft with the Daniel Jones, Wandale Moore, and really attack, potentially sending off. Ultimately, we went with Kenny Galladay.
Yeah. I didn't think about that stacking way of looking at it, but yeah, I like Kenny Galladay. I do think the Giants offense might be underrated this season. I think right now, when you look at the Giants offense, nobody really knows who the main wide receiver for that team is going to be. Yeah, we can say it's probably Kadarius Toney. We could say it's Sterling Shepard if he's back healthy. It could be Kenny Galladay. You really don't know. But I feel like whoever it ends up being is going to have a lot of value.
Hey everybody, Billy Musi with Full-Time Fantasy back here, and with the 6th pick in the 10th round, I selected Melvin Gordon. I'm actually higher on Melvin Gordon this year than most people are, but I'm also lower on Javonte than most people are, simply due to timeshare. And we saw people take Javonte in round 1 in some drafts, round 2 on average. And you look at last year and the splits that these two ran, and when Melvin Gordon re-signed, I started thinking that we might see a similar workload. Now, I don't expect them to be a near 50-50 split like they were last year, but I do expect it to be closer to 55-45 than it is going to be 60-40. With that being said, last year we saw Melvin Gordon and Devante both saw 32.1 snaps per game. We saw Williams, who saw 32.4. Melvin Gordon saw 47.5% of the total snaps, while Devante saw 51%. In teams of rushing share, Melvin Gordon saw an identical 44.6% of the team's rushing attempts with Williams. You look at touches per snap, Melvin Gordon last year at 44.9, Williams 44.6. Fantasy points, Melvin Gordon had 195.1, Williams 204.9. And then you look at fantasy points per 100 snaps, Melvin Gordon had 38, Williams 37.2. Now, I don't expect this to be this identical this year, but my point is that it is much cheaper to take the latter of the two at ADP and cash in on the investment and get that return on the player. I have Melvin Gordon as my running back 33 this year. He was taken here on the board as the running back 38, so a little bit value compared to my rankings. My projections have him for 170 rushing attempts, 680 rushing yards, and 5 scores, adding in another 35 receptions, 233 receiving yards, and 1 touchdown. So very happy to get him here as my running back 4 on this team, and excited to see what he can do in this new Denver offense.
With pick 1007, the football diehards get another Patriot, wide receiver Devante Parker. In an unusual move, the Dolphins sent Parker to divisional rival New England in exchange for a 2023 third-round pick. Parker, who caught 40 passes for 515 yards with a pair of touchdowns in 10 games last season, has produced just one 1,000-yard season in his 7 years as a pro, a 2019 campaign when he also set career highs in receptions with 72 and receiving touchdowns with 9. Since then, the former first-rounder has failed to top 800 yards and 65 catches in a single season. Against the Patriots, however, Parker has consistently produced. As the Boston Herald noted, over a dozen head-to-head meetings, he's averaged 50 yards and a touchdown catch per game. Parker should provide a uniquely physical presence on a depth chart with Kendrick Bourne, Nelson Aguilar, Jacoby Myers, and rookie Tyquan Thornton. I expect him to open the season as the Pats' top outside threat, and that's worth something, especially in the double-digit rounds.
At the 10:08, the 33rd team selects wide receiver Jarvis Landry. The past 5 seasons, he's been top 12 in targets per route run. So I know some people say, oh, he's slowing down. Look at last year. Look at the decline in actual stats. He had some injury issues. You know what? When he was on the field, he was still one of the best wide receivers in football when it came to commanding targets. That is what I expect this year. Michael Thomas's recovery is a total mystery. Chris Olave, massive upside, but he's a rookie. It wouldn't shock me if he, for some reason, does not produce. Jarvis Landry, clear-cut role in this offense. We know exactly what to expect. I'm counting on some spike weeks from him in what should be a more pass-heavy attack this year, especially with the Kamara uncertainty. Jameis Winston now in year 2 with the Saints. I'm very excited to be able to get Jarvis Landry this late. Looking at the board, I think the only other guy that I was considering was Jacoby Myers. I just felt like the offense and the consolidated targets are much better for the Saints.
In the 10th round of the FFWC Best Ball Video Showdown Draft, I selected Darrell Henderson. I wanted my 4th running back. I wanted a piece of this Rams backfield, and I don't want to pay up for Cam Akers. I believe there's a lot of question marks outside of injury with Cam Akers, notably the fact that since Todd Gurley, Sean McVay has yet to commit to one running back. He likes running the hot hand approach. Last year, it would have been Akers, Henderson, then they brought in Sony Michel. Without Akers, it was Henderson and Sony Michel. If you go back to a couple of years ago, we saw a little bit of Henderson, we saw a little bit of Akers. It's a hodgepodge of running backs, whether people want to believe it or not, with the Los Angeles Rams. So me, I like targeting the cheaper guy more times than not, and in this case, it's Darrell Henderson. In the past 2 years, Darrell Henderson has produced 11 RB24 or better games, including 7 of them last year. So even if we get a healthy Cam Akers back, I still believe we're going to see that hot hand approach, which means Darrell Henderson is going to get his run. And when Darrell Henderson is healthy and gets his run in the Sean McVay offense, he produces fantasy points. And in the 10th round, he has a lot of ceiling, which is worth chasing at this part of the draft.
With the 10th pick in the 10th round, Fantasy Football Diagnostics selects New York Jets running back Michael Carter. All right, I know what I was saying with the Jets thing and then not being a Jets pick, but it just looks really bad with back-to-back Jets players. But I do really like Michael Carter. I get him here as the running back 40, which I got him as the running back 38. So this is not overly aggressive on my part. I do think that he will still have a role. I know the Jets drafted Breece Hall, but Michael Carter was very good last year. Being able to break tackles, he was used as a weapon in the passing game as well. So I think he'll continue to have a role in the Jets offense. He's probably better off as a change of pace type running back, where you'll see him get 10 to 12 touches a game, through the reception or through the passing game, as well as, in the running game. So, I do like Michael Carter a lot. I think obviously with the running back position being one where there's injuries, Breece Hall is not going to, be healthy 100% all throughout the year. So Michael Carter is going to have his opportunities as well. He was a guy that was a lead guy last year for the Jets. And with the upgrades that they've made on the offensive line, especially on the interior, I feel like this Jets running game could potentially take off here. So Michael Carter, definitely a nice option here in the 10th round.
With the 11th pick in the 10th round, the GOAT District selects tight end Zach Ertz. This was an interesting pick for us. We were looking at tight ends. We did not expect Zach Ertz to fall to this level. We had Cole Kmet also in the queue, who we like, but Ertz really stands out as a player with somewhat of a tier break behind him. Last year, despite being traded midseason, he finished as tight end 6 overall. When he reached Arizona, they leaned on him quite a bit. He had 4 games with 9 targets or more. We feel as though he has a very good chance to be the number 2 target in the Arizona passing attack to start the season, with DeAndre Hopkins out and Rondale Moore's role undefined. It's Hollywood Brown and Zach Ertz, then probably Moore, but we feel like Ertz is going to have a weekly floor, and we love getting him as a tight end 1.
With the last pick of the 10th round, Fantasy Alarm selects Hunter Henry. Now, every top 5 tight end in PPR, going back to Randy McMichael in 2003, has had either 90 plus targets or 10 plus touchdowns, right? Every single one. And last year, no tight end in the league had 10 plus touchdowns. There were a couple tied for the league lead with 9, and one of them was Hunter Henry. This is a guy that lines up at wide receiver for 73% of his pass plays. He can beat guys in man-to-man, which is crucial down in goal line situations when it's a lot of zero coverage, man-to-man coverage. That's what makes him such a red zone target. And touchdown dependency, guys that we usually don't go for in normal redraft leagues, are not that bad in best ball. It kind of washes away the sins of touchdown dependency because you get those good games without the bad games. Now, on the flip side, on the target side, the vast majority of guys that hit that 90 target threshold, those guys either lead their team in targets or are second. Last year, even with his first year in the organization, even with a rookie quarterback, Hunter Henry was the second target on this team. There's a real chance that their relationship takes a step forward, Mac Jones takes a step forward, and he crosses that 90 target threshold as well. So we're coming at the top 5 tight end situation from both sides, from the touchdown side, from the target side. We like Hunter Henry this year. With the first pick of the 11th round, Fantasy Alarm selects Christian Watson. With this pick, we are going for some upside. We already have some pretty good floor on this roster already. We have Keenan Allen, who is the definition of a floor guy, a guy that goes out, catches a few passes every week that you can count on, but doesn't necessarily have that monster game ceiling. We have Jerry Jeudy, another one of those type guys. We have Chris Godwin, who when he's back, could be back week 1, is another one of those guys, right? We have a lot of floor options to kind of fill out our lineup. We needed to go big somewhere on this list, right? So what we did here was take a guy that has a huge range of outcomes. We're talking a physical specimen, 6'4", runs a 4.3, 640. When you go on Player Profiler, look at all the metrics, 96, 98th percentile. He jumps off the board here. This is a guy that, has the athletic profile, of like a Randy Moss type guy. But the thing is, he also has a crazy floor because we've seen these athletic freaks come in, even ones drafted early in the NFL draft, and just absolutely faceplant. I mean, we watched Denzel Mims. He's an athletic freak. You look at Kevin White. These guys looked on paper like they were the real deal, but they just didn't pan out in this league, right? So we know the risk, we know the reward. We're going for it here. We want a piece of the back-to-back MVP offense, and this was a pretty reasonable price to get a guy that could have a good ceiling. So we're taking a shot here. Christian Watson.
With the second pick in the 11th round, the GOAT District selects Ronald Jones. This is the downside for waiting on RB3. Jones is absolutely a risky RB3 for our build. However, we need to play catch up at running back. We're very intrigued at the chance of Jones taking the goal line job in the Kansas City Chiefs explosive offense. If he simply can be the goal line back and maybe some short yardage situations, then I think Jones could return a lot of value this year, and he could smash his ADP. There's also a chance that he sees little to no role at all, and he gets, essentially a handcuff to a Clyde Edwards-Helaire or whoever the Chiefs are starting at running back. This pick was a high-risk, high-reward one, but one we needed to make structurally.
With the third pick in the 11th round, Fantasy Football Diagnostics selects Kansas City wide receiver Miko Hardman. I feel like I'm getting Hardman here in a really good spot. Wide receiver 59. I do have him as wide receiver 44 in my rankings. I get him here as the fourth Kansas City wide receiver. So after Juju Smith-Schuster, after Skye Moore, after Marquez Valdez-Scantling. So people have pretty much written off Hardman for the most part. But the way I see it is he is the only receiver of those four receivers that played with Patrick Mahomes last year or the year before that as well, or the year before that. So he's got 3 years under his belt with playing with Mahomes. The last 2 years, he averaged 12.5 yards per reception with a 69% catch rate. Just last year, he was averaging about 11.7 yards per reception with a 71% catch rate on 83 targets. So you imagine that if he can siphon some more targets, obviously, Tyreek Hill is gone. That's about 150 targets there that are up for grabs. I think that if Hardman can at least absorb 20, 40 of those, that should lead to a solid season for him playing again with Patrick Mahomes there. So, I think that there's a lot of upside here. I think he really rounds out this receiving group really well for me, where it's obviously headlined by Justin Jefferson and Deebo Samuel. But now I have a trio of receivers and Tim Patrick and Garrett Wilson and now Miko Hardman that really give me some juice week in and week out that I feel like, could really make up, at least two of those three guys should at least bring some value, some wide receiver 2 value on a weekly basis. So not done adding to this group, but now feeling pretty good about it, considering where we were just a few rounds ago.
With my 11th round pick in the FFWC Best Ball Video Showdown, I took James Robinson. He's my 5th running back. My running back room is starting to get really set, and I love James Robinson. Yes, we know this is Travis Etienne's backfield. We also know that James Robinson's coming off the Achilles. However, I drafted James Robinson where I felt he was at a value all off season long, and maybe I reached around in this draft, but he's a guy I want to get my hands on. Number 1, Doug Peterson. We saw the reports a few weeks ago that he does view James Robinson as an all-purpose back. We also know that James Robinson is back from the Achilles and practicing in camp. The most recent report states that James Robinson was taking first-team reps. These are all really, really good signs. Now, does this suggest it's going to be a timeshare, a 50-50 split? Absolutely not. The targets and the touches are going to be dominated by Travis Etienne, who right now is touted as the star of Jags camp. However, when Travis Etienne gets a breather, there's going to be leftovers for James Robinson. So Robinson's a handcuff with some legit standalone value. We know he can catch passes. We know he can run in between the tackles. And we know he can do all this behind a really bad offensive line and on a dysfunctional offense. With Doug Peterson in town and with the new additions to the offensive line, there's going to be more competency on the offense. There's going to be a more bruising, hole-opening offensive line, which means more production from James Robinson. So we're going to need more efficient touches out of J-Rob, which we know that he's capable of this year because he's not going to get as many touches as we are used to seeing him get. However, I do believe James Robinson is that back who in the 11th round can really bring some legit flex appeal and fantasy value. And knock on wood, should anything happen to Travis Etienne, we have a built-in ready RB2 with RB1 upside, because in the first 2 years of James Robinson's career, he's given us RB1 production, and last year, despite all dysfunction, still finished as the RB20 in fantasy points per game. What else do you want from a round 11 running back? I'm all in on J-Rob.
At the 11:05, the 33rd team selected Pat Freiermuth. This was an auto pick. Would have much preferred to take Dawson Knox. Pat Freiermuth, he's competing for targets with Deontay, Claypool, Pickens, Najee Harris. It's not like the offensive line's very good. It's not like the quarterback play from Trubisky, Rudolph, Pickett is going to be very good. So an unfortunate auto pick here for the 33rd team.
With pick 1106, the football diehards snared Texans rookie running back Dameon Pierce. The Texans, who averaged a league worst 3.4 yards per rush and finished with just 8 rushing touchdowns, tied for worst in the league last season, clearly had a need for a lead back. Pierce, selected in the 4th round of April's draft, had 16 scrimmage touchdowns last year, the most by a Florida player since Percy Harvin had 17 in 2008. So Pierce is plenty capable. Better still, the Texans offer an incredible opportunity for Pierce to do something he never got the chance to do in college, operate in the 3-down role. According to CBS Sports, Pierce's underrated route running ability and his vertically oriented running style make him a perfect fit to inherit a massive role in year 1 if he can climb the depth chart in training camp in the preseason. The Texans added Marlon Mack to their backfield in free agency over the offseason, while Rex Burkhead and Royce Freeman are among the holdovers. But even with the veteran presence, Pierce will have RB2 upside once he's at the top of the depth chart.
Hey everybody, Billy Muzio here with Full Time Fantasy, and I'm back. It's pick 7, the 11th round, and I'm starting to look at quarterback. Right now, I only have running backs and wide receivers. I have 4 running backs, and I have 6 wide receivers. So I am in need of finding myself a quarterback, and lo and behold, the 2-time MVP is still on the board in the 11th round. We have already seen Stafford go off the board, Fields, Trey Lance, Brady, Burrow. This is around the time that I like to consider quarterback. And who else can I grab to pair with one of my top selections? I took Aaron Jones in the 2nd round, and I think that Aaron Jones has a real chance to be the 2nd most targeted player inside of this Green Bay offense, so I went for the stack with Aaron Rodgers. And I know people have a lot of concerns with Aaron Rodgers this year with no Devante Adams, but Aaron Rodgers has been a quarterback 1. I'm going to say quarterback 1, not the quarterback 1, but a top 12 quarterback for 13 of the last 14 years in fantasy seasons and points per game. So Devante Adams or no Devante Adams, Aaron Rodgers is still an elite talent, and to be able to get him here in the 11th round, I'm excited to add him to the team. So I will start to look maybe at tight end here shortly, maybe add another running back around on the next pick. We'll see who's there, and we'll let the board come.
All right, guys, with pick 1108, team 1st and 15 chooses Rondale Moore. That was my pick. I wanted someone who had a lot of upside. I feel like Rondale Moore will have that upside in the Arizona Cardinals offense. What do you guys think about that pick?
I love that pick personally. For me, I was a big Rondale Moore fan last year. Obviously, he did not get utilized the way that I wanted him to be utilized. But that wide receiver room was had a lot of competition, a lot of vets. And this year we see, DeAndre Hopkins obviously being out 6 games. We see the exodus of Christian Kirk. And we see Rondale Moore really entering into his 2nd year. We've heard, some good rumblings from the head coach and some things out of camps from beat reporters that he could potentially slot in as that Christian Kirk role. And to me, that makes a lot of sense given all the other players' skill set and attributes. I know everyone's high on Marquise Brown, given the previous relationship with his, quarterback going back to college. I think Marquise Brown really is a guy that, you want to stretch defenses with. I don't think that he's worked or utilized best in the slot or the way that Christian Kirk was used last year. So I see him more kind of on the outside.
All right.
And then, can you keep going?
Was it all right? I mean, like, how long? I mean,
he said 2 minutes. He said we can go 2 minutes.
I know people are going 2 minutes, but let's try to stick to.
Man, they going 2 minutes. I want to go 2 minutes.
All right, with my round 11 selection, Jakobi Meyers. Jakobi Meyers is a primary option for Mac Jones, and Mac Jones is supposed to take a leap forward. And yes, I know this team wants to be run first. Sure, if you want to be run first, be run first. But there's going to be plenty of games like against Buffalo and Miami and others where the Patriots aren't going to be able to be run first. They're going to have to throw the ball. And Jakobi Meyers is going to be out there. Kendrick Bourne is getting buried in the depth chart. He's been usurped by Devante Parker. It's going to be Devante Parker and Jakobi Meyers out there getting a 90% snap share. And Devante Parker's unlikely to play a full 17-game schedule. The reliable option will be able to start every week. I know this is best ball, so he's going to enter my lineup plenty, is going to be Jakobi Meyers. Give me the targets.
Hey, guys, this is Adam from DraftSharks.com again. I'm on the clock, pick 10 in the 11th round. I went with running back Alexander Mattison as the RB44 off the board. Love it. You know, there's not much explaining here. He's a top 5 fantasy running back when Dalvin Cook doesn't play, and Dalvin Cook will miss. He's getting older. He's going to miss three to 4 games, maybe more. So it's just a bet on Dalvin Cook missing games in a hero RB build like mine. I love taking these handcuff running backs that are absolute smashes. I took Tony Pollard earlier. Same type of deal. If Zeke goes down, Zeke doesn't get hurt as much as Dalvin Cook does, but when Dalvin Cook goes down, when Zeke goes down, those two guys are top 5 fantasy running backs. They'll sit on my bench until it's time to be called upon, and then they'll go in and smash. So I think I'm done at the running back position for a while. Let's see what I do here in the 12th round.
This is Pat Fitzmaurice of Fantasy Pros, and with pick 11-11 in the FFWC Video Showdown, I went with running back Nyheim Hines of the Indianapolis Colts. And I actually like this pick. He's my 4th running back behind Dalvin Cook, Najee Harris, and Ken Walker. But I think he is going to be a high floor guy. Certainly, the Colts are going to target their running backs more in the passing game than they did last year with Carson Wentz at quarterback. Wentz does not throw to his running backs very often. Matt Ryan does. The immobile quarterbacks tend to check down a lot more often, as we saw with Tom Brady last year. And Ryan's kind of done that a lot in his career. So, I mean, I think Frank Reich has even said that he would want to have Nyheim Hines on his fantasy team this year. No real featured back upside. Even if Jonathan Taylor got hurt, I think Hines would just get a little more early down work. He's pretty strictly a satellite guy, but he is a high floor satellite guy. I think he's going to catch a lot of passes this year.
With the 12th pick of the 11th round, Best Ball Fantasy Podcast selects Kenneth Gainwell. And Kenneth Gainwell is presumably the backup to Miles Sanders, but not so fast. Kenneth Gainwell has been getting a lot of run in the preseason with the ones. And last season, he had 3 top 10 running back weeks, including the running back 7 week, where he had 8 targets in week 4 against Kansas City, 89 total yards and a touchdown. And also against the New York Jets, he had 5 receptions, 87 yards and a touchdown. And in week 18 against Dallas, 4 receptions, 87 yards, and a touchdown. This is a player, good receiving profile, and I need PPR running backs in this league. I don't have a stud outside of Breece Hall, so I'm going to require some of my running backs to rotate through spike weeks, and that's what I'm going to get with Kenneth Gainwell at pick 11-12. With the first pick of the 12th round, I selected Isaiah Spiller. And Isaiah Spiller is also in the vein of pass-catching running back who can profile and fit into the similar type of role as Austin Eckler for the Los Angeles Chargers. Now, I don't expect Spiller to have a weekly value, but in the case of Austin Eckler being out, I think he could fit into that pass-catching role really well. He had an 8, 8, and 9% target shares each of his 3 seasons at Texas A&M, 900 and 1,000 and 1,000 yards total rushing as well. So capable player. He didn't test well at the combine, but he's on a team that is looking to reduce the touches for Austin Eckler, and I think that there's some spike week potential with the high-octane offense that is the Chargers.
This is Pat Fitzmaurice of Fantasy Pros, and with pick 1202 in the FFWC Video Showdown, I took DJ Chark, wide receiver, Detroit Lions, and Chark was once a 1,000-yard receiver in 2019, his second NFL season, 1,008 yards and 8 touchdowns. So there is some plausible upside here. Missed nearly all of the 2021 season with a broken ankle. Now goes to a new team, the Detroit Lions. And yeah, there's some target competition, although the Lions probably aren't going to get deep threat Jameson Williams back in action until he figures to be on PUP. He tore his ACL late in the season for Alabama last year. So that should give Chark, at least 6 games with a pretty clear runway as the leading deep threat for the Lions. I don't know how much that means with Jared Goff at quarterback. Hey, man, it's late in the draft. The wide receivers are really thinning out. And, Chark is my 6th wide receiver. So hopefully he can give me a few spike games. We know he's kind of a big play guy. I'm hoping for a couple big games.
Hello, everyone. Adam Krautwurst from DraftSharks.com with you to talk about my next pick here in the draft. And I went with a guy by the name of Jamison Crowder, pick 3 in the 12th round as the wide receiver 63 off the board. Got back to wide receiver here after a 6 or 7 round break. Crowder will be competing for the Bills slot receiver job, which has been pretty awesome the last couple of years with Cole Beasley. So if Crowder can win that job against Isaiah McKenzie, I see a great role for him. He'll absolutely smash that wide receiver 63 production. Cole Beasley was a wide receiver 2 when healthy with the Bills. So he's going to kill that production. If he loses out to Isaiah McKenzie would also smash in that position here. So I'm putting my chips in on Crowder to win that job. He's been successful. He's a veteran. And we'll see how that pans out. But I like that bet with the 3rd pick in the 12th round. So I'm looking at maybe get a quarterback with this next pick, and let's see who's available there.
Then with my next selection in the 12th round, Rashad White. This is a maximum upside pick. I think Rashad White's going to get snaps, carries as a breather back. He's certainly better than Giovanni Bernard and Keyshawn Vaughn. I think he should usurp them with a good training camp and preseason pretty easily. That means he's going to be a breather back. And I think if he is impressive in any way, he can carve out a 30% opportunity share behind Leonard Fournette with a 70%. And Leonard Fournette will likely miss some games with injury. It's going to happen. He's not the type of running back that's out here, carving up his body in the offseason with strength and conditioning. So expect him to miss some games with a hamstring strain, something like that. That's what Leonard Fournette does. And in those games, Rashad White is going to go completely nuclear with 30-plus point upside. That's why I drafted him. And then...
All right, at pick 1205, team 1st and 15, chooses J.D. McKissick, Washington Commanders running back. Dio, this was your pick. Mm-hmm. Why McKissick here?
I kind of went into it wanting a running back. Leading up to my pick, and if we haven't said this, we're kind of alternating. Abby goes first, then Chris, then me. But leading up to my pick, I was eyeballing actually Ronald Jones. Mm-hmm. I'm really high on Ronald Jones. I really think he could be utilized quite a bit with the Chiefs, and with just having that offense, he could just kind of explode and give us a lot of production. Ronald Jones was obviously taken, I think, 2 rounds prior. Yeah. I didn't have my eyeball on Nyheim Hines, with all the buzz and just knowing he can have those explosive games. Kind of wanted him, and he was taken actually a few picks prior. Then I started looking at Rashad White. Mm-hmm. He was taking literally the pick before. Yeah. And you can see from all these guys I'm mentioning, well, not Ronald Jones, but from the latter 2, these are guys that tend to be involved in the passing game, mm-hmm. regardless of whether their starting running back is injured. All right, so that's kind of why I saw McKissick. I kind of looked at the numbers he did last year, and even with Gibson playing, McKissick was putting up pretty good numbers. If Gibson did go down, then you would assume that the numbers would go even higher. And I was looking at the fact that we had 3 running backs already. 2 of them had the same bye week. Penny and Chase had bye weeks in week 11. Yeah. So I wanted to just kind of have somebody there to fill that hole for when, we just kind of need to fill it up. So
McKissick, I think, has a week 14 bye week, so it just kind of fit the bill that I wanted to do. I wasn't in love with the pick, but it was more of a necessity pick there.
All right, that works.
Hey, everybody. Billy Musi with Full-Time Fantasy back on the clock. We are now in the 12th round, and it is pick number 6 in the 12th round. I took Aaron Rodgers last round. I said I might take a running back this round. I might take a tight end. There's still a lot of tight ends on the board that I like, so I'm going to push. I'm going to push. Everyone knows that I like to push the tight end position. This left side of the board is pretty heavy on tight end, so I think I have about 4 or 5 in my queue that I like, so I'm bound to get 1 on the way back, if not 2 for the rounds 13 and 14. So I'm going to go ahead and take a pure upside shot here, and this is 100% ceiling play. I'm going to take Jameson Williams for Detroit. So I know he's coming off that injury. I know he's probably not going to be ready until about November, but that being said, when he is back with the depth of this roster, it's 24 roster spots. I like being able to add this type of ceiling play on my team, especially we have some division games against Rodgers and Jones, who I just talked about earlier. So I think that having him in here with a much improved Detroit offensive line and in much improved Detroit offense in general, I think that Jameson Williams is a great addition to this team. That's going to be.
With pick 1207, the football diehards secure the services of Raiders quarterback Derek Carr. Carr led the Raiders to the playoffs in 2021 as he set a career high in passing yards with 4,804. Is that a ceiling? Well, now that the Raiders have Devante Adams, there might be room for more. Carr has significantly improved as a passer over the last 3 seasons, last year averaging 7.8 yards per attempt. Quite an improvement over the 2014 to 2018 Carr, who averaged just 6.7 yards per attempt. Now he has Adams, tight end Darren Waller, and receiver Hunter Renfrow at his disposal. What does the addition of Adams do? Well, in their 2 seasons as Fresno State Bulldogs, Adams led the FBS in receptions, receiving yards, and receiving touchdowns, while Carr led the division of passing yards and passing touchdowns. With new head coach Josh McDaniels coming on board as well, expect the offense to offer ample opportunity for Carr to leverage all those weapons. I get reasonably priced QB1 upside at my QB2 spot.
At the 1208, the 33rd team selected quarterback Kirk Cousins. He's had 30 or more passing touchdowns 3 of the last 4 years. Mike Zimmer is now out. And the new head coach, Kevin O'Connell, comes from the Rams system. He was the OC there. The hope is they are going to pass more. So, yes, limited upside due to lacking the mobility. However, I think he can be one of the top 3 to 5 quarterbacks in passing touchdowns this year and give you those coveted spike weeks.
With my 12th round pick in the FFWC Best Ball Video Showdown, I took my first tight end in the form of Mike Gesicki. I'm all in on Mike Gesicki. Now, Mike Gesicki, if you look at the past few years, last year, tight end 14 in fantasy points per game, but the tight end 8 overall in PPR. Go back to 2020, tight end 8 in fantasy points per game. In 2019, the tight end 13 in fantasy points per game. Now, if we focus on last season, Mike Gesicki was the #1 tight end in slot snaps. That could take a hit considering the additions of Cedric Wilson and Tyreek Hill. He was a #3 tight end in air yards, #4 tight end in targets, #2 tight end in average cushion, number 16 tight end in yards per target. There's a lot of positives here that we can hang our hats on with Mike Gesicki. Now, let's first focus on Mike McDaniel. Where does Mike McDaniel come from? He comes from the 49ers. Now, I'm not saying that he's going to automatically turn Mike Gesicki into George Kittle, but I do believe he's going to bring some of his philosophies over, like scheming his quarterback into high percentage throws and scheming his playmakers open to make those big plays. Mike Gesicki has the skill set, the ability, and the versatility to make those big plays. Now, where I do worry about Gesicki a little bit, he had a career high 111 targets last season. With Tyreek Hill, Cedric Wilson, and Jalen Waddle commanding their target share, expect Mike Gesicki's target share to regress. So we need Mike Gesicki to be uber efficient with the opportunities he's going to have. And again, we know that Mike Gesicki is a type of athlete who can be uber efficient with his touches and his receptions. I'm in on Mike Gesicki. I'm not expecting a George Kittle from a few years ago type of season. However, when you're in the 12th round of a fantasy draft and you get a guy like Mike Gesicki, who has a reasonably high floor, but we also know his potential ceiling, you should be walking out of this draft extremely happy to punt the tight end position until the 12th round and still walk away with a guy with the upside of Mike Gesicki.
With the 10th pick in the 12th round, Fantasy Football Diagnostics selects Albert Okwuegbunam, tight end of the Denver Broncos. Again, get to get this stack here between Russell Wilson and a cheaper option here. Wasn't able to get Cortland Sutton or Jerry Jeudy like I previously mentioned, but I was able to get Tim Patrick in the 8th round, and now Albert Okwuegbunam in the 12th round as the tight end 13. I'm really high on Okwuegbunam. I'm just going to call him Al-O from here on out for the rest of this remainder of this video, but I'm really high on Al-O. I've got him as the tight end 7, so higher than most people. But this is a guy that has an 80% catch rate, averages about 10 yards per reception over his career. And now he's catching passes from Russell Wilson, and we know Russell Wilson does like to target the tight end position, especially as we get down closer into the red zone. So I like Albert O for about 550 to 600 receiving yards. Somewhere in the ballpark of 6 to 8 touchdowns, definitely within the range of outcomes for him here. As you know, this is a guy that was sharing essentially the tight end duties with Noah Fant the last 2 years. As a third-year player, he comes in 6'5", 260 pounds, running a sub 4.5 at a 4.49 just a couple years ago at the Combine. So this is an athletic freak that we're talking about, and now he's got opportunity and he's got a quarterback. So those two ingredients are a recipe for fantasy football success, especially from a late round tight end there. So definitely love Al-O here. Realizing after the fact that his bye week syncs up with George Kittle, who's my tight end 1. So I don't really want to draft 3 tight ends because of 1 week, but I probably will end up doing it that way. So we'll see how the rest of this draft pans out. But I love Al-O this year.
With the 11th pick in the 12th round, the GOAT District selects Khalil Herbert. We saw how effective Herbert could be last year filling in for David Montgomery, and we expect this year that his role could grow with the new coaching staff in place in Chicago that should really be emphasizing the run. Herbert is a handcuff, but we think he could be viewed as a handcuff with a weekly floor. He's going to get mixed in. There's no guarantees David Montgomery is the long-term back in Chicago. He is without a contract right now. It would not be shocking to see Herbert really cut into his share, and we are happy to get him at this range in the draft.
With the last pick of the 12th round, Fantasy Alarm selects Cole Kmet. Now, a couple rounds ago with Hunter Henry, we talked about the paths to being a top 5 tight end in this league. That's either 90-plus targets or double-digit touchdowns. Cole Kmet last year already crossed that 90 target threshold. He had 93 targets, and that was with Allen Robinson on the team. They let Allen Robinson walk and replaced him with what? Byron Pringle, Velus Jones Jr., Darnell Mooney already had 140 targets, so how many more can Mooney really soak up? Cole Kmet's in a perfect position to be a top 2 target on the team, collect the targets he needs. Last year he had 0 touchdowns, so we're expecting at least a little bit of regression in that category. And when you look at the metrics that we consider important for tight end success, he checks a lot of those boxes, right? He blocks on less than 15% of his pass plays. He lines up at wide receiver a ton, 8th most snaps at wide receiver of any tight end. He runs high 8-out routes, over 8 yards per route. I mean, that's right in line with Travis Kelce, TJ Hawkinson. He's checking all those boxes. He's one of the few guys that you can get outside or near the back half of the top 12 tight ends that has a realistic chance to either lead his team in targets or at least be second. Cole Kmet is a guy that we're grabbing in pretty much every league at his ADP because of that upside.
With the first pick in the 13th round, the Fantasy Alarm team selects Houston Texans wide receiver Nico Collins. We're expecting big things out of Nico Collins here in year 2. Sure, he's a number 2 target on this team behind Brandon Cooks, but we're a little bit bullish on this passing offense. We thought Davis Mills looked really good last year when given the opportunity to start. And even Nico Collins at the end of the last year started to flash a bit as well. He has a nice size profile. He should be a big target for Davis Mills this year. No real competition for number 2 targets. Maybe Brevin Jordan cuts into it a little bit here, but we're thinking Collins is a guy to target, and we're in a best ball format. We don't need him every week. We have a really strong core of wide receivers. We just think there'll be some weeks where he does have that wide receiver type game where he'll break into our lineup.
This is Theo Gremminger representing the GOAT District. With the second pick in the 13th round, the GOAT District selects Irv Smith. This was a difficult choice. We could have gone with Dawson Knox. We could have gone back to the wide receiver position with someone like Jihan Dotson. But Smith stood out to us as a player who could gain value as the season moves along. We expect that there will be more of an emphasis on a passing attack in Minnesota. Tyler Conklin has left. He's a New York Jet right now. The tight end position is pretty much all Irv Smith's in Minnesota. Right now it's Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, Dalvin Cook. But after that, we think Irv Smith could carve a real nice role with top 8 potential at the tight end position this year. And we got him as tight end 15.
With the third pick in the 13th round, I, Jon Jeune of Fantasy Football Diagnostics, select Robbie Anderson, wide receiver of the Carolina Panthers. Like I've been preaching, I don't love my receiver depth out after Justin Jefferson and Deebo Samuel. So with that being said, I have to, continue to load up on some of these volatile receivers. I got to welcome some volatility here. So taking a flyer on Robbie Anderson, who gets a perceived quarterback upgrade with the potential insertion of Baker Mayfield as the starting quarterback in Carolina, following the trade of him there. So, just trying to get some wide receiver 3 flex weeks out of Robbie Anderson here. I've got him projected for 600 receiving yards, for about 4 receiving touchdowns. Again, nothing to write home about, but that should, we know that his touchdowns sometimes often come in bunches. So I'm hoping that I get some big time games, some big touchdown games out of Robbie Anderson here to hold together the fort here as a wide receiver 3 flex option for me.
With my 13th pick in the FFWC Best Ball Video Showdown, I took Marvin Jones. And yes, this is my second Jacksonville Jaguars receiver, my third overall Jacksonville Jaguars player, if we take in consideration James Robinson a few rounds ago. No Trevor Lawrence. I was sniped. I'm a little bit mad about it, but I'm still happy to have my hands on some Jacksonville Jaguars assets because this is an offense that I believe is going to take a big-time step forward in year 2 with Trevor Lawrence and year 1 in a more competent Doug Peterson system. Now, when we look at Marvin Jones, yes, he's projected to be the wide receiver 2, but will he really be the wide receiver 2 a lot of weeks? Because he does have that pre-existing rapport with Trevor Lawrence. And if we look at the stats, number 20 wide receiver in air yards. He was 20th in deep targets, 16th in red zone targets. Just because a lot of those targets did not connect, the opportunity was there in year 1 between Lawrence and Marvin Jones, which means it's probably going to be there in some extent in year 2. We're getting Marvin Jones in the 13th round. Let's say Marvin Jones in this offense and Trevor Lawrence takes that step forward like I believe they will. Well, 2 years ago, in his final year with the Detroit Lions, Marvin Jones was the wide receiver 26th in fantasy points per game. Go back to 2019, he was a wide receiver 19 in fantasy points per game. Sure, he regressed to wide receiver 38 in that category last year, but Lawrence and Jones, incompetent offense, they missed on a lot of those opportunities, but if they connect on just a few more this season, we're going to be talking about Marvin Jones flirting with that wide receiver 2 tier, and you're getting him in the 13th round, which is why I'm ecstatic with this pick.
At the 13:05, the 33rd team selected wide receiver Jihan Dotson. This is just an absolutely disrespected middle of the first round wide receiver. Yes, I understand he played 4 years. Yes, I understand that he's not the largest wide receiver. However, he had pretty incredible production across his 4 seasons in college. He is decently fast. And yes, while Carson Wentz may not be the best quarterback, it's not like the target competition is actually that difficult. Logan Thomas recovering from the ACL tear. Terry McLaurin actually didn't really take a step forward last year like some expected he would. And then Curtis Samuel is just an absolute wild card. There is a real chance that Jihan Dotson could be the number to clearly in this passing game.
With pick 13-6, the football diehards are taking a shot on Commanders wide receiver Curtis Samuel. Didn't see anybody I considered to be a lock for consistent contributions at this point, so I went for possible upside. Samuel only suited up for Washington in 5 games in 2021 as he battled various soft tissue injuries. 6 catches, 27 yards, 0 touchdowns. That was his total contribution to the Commanders' struggling offense. But remember, in his 4 seasons in Carolina, Samuel had 257 touches for 2,500 yards and 19 touchdowns. So while his first season in DC was disappointing, Samuel can still emerge as a legitimate threat here as long as he's healthy. On that front, early indications have been positive. Given the price point, the possibility he'll have a Deebo Samuel light role and contribute as both a runner and receiver, it's easy to take a chance here.
Hey everybody, Billy Muser here, full-time back, and it's pick 13, or I should say pick 7 in the 13th round, my pick 13. And if you pay attention last round, I said that I was really hoping a tight end would come back. I had about 5 in the queue. Well, 4 of those 5 actually went. The one who I actually had the furthest down on my queue was Dawson Knox. He's still in here. I was actually pretty surprised to see a tight end run go here, seeing that the left side of the board was pretty tight end heavy. We had people start selecting their second tight end. So Gesicki went off the board after my Jameson Williams pick. Albert O'Kay went off the board. My boy Cole Kmet went off the board as a second tight end to Fantasy Alarm. Irv Smith went off the board to the GOAT District as their second tight end. So we had 3 of these teams take their second tight ends on the left-hand side. I was not expecting that to happen, quite frankly. So not my ideal pick here with Dawson Knox, who comes in as my tight end 19 on the year. But again, I'm going to play upside here because he did have a pretty good touchdown rate last year. I don't expect that rate to continue in 2022, but we're talking about the number 1 offense in football. So I want to get a piece of that. So Dawson Knox off the board here is tight end 16. My first tight end on the team in round 13. Welcome to.
All right, I picked 1308. Team first and 15 chooses Van Jefferson. Abby, this was your pick.
This is my pick because clearly these guys was not fans.
Yes.
You know, at this stage in the draft, there's obviously not a lot available. It's a 24-round draft, so we have, you know, quite a few needs. But really what I'm focused in on, again, keep going back to the idea that we got to start 3 wide receivers and we got to start a flex. So this late, likely, you know, anyone who's going to enter in flex consideration is probably going to be a wide receiver. And one reason why I like Van Jefferson, I was also considering KJ Osborne, is because Rams run a lot of 3 wide receiver sets, so meaning he's going to be on the field a lot, and he's their deep play threat, okay? You look back to his game logs last year, I want to say he had 5 or 6 games of 15+ fantasy points, and that's really what I'm looking for. You know, can you provide weekly starter numbers without an injury needing to occur? So we already had Thielen. We didn't have Cousins, so I didn't like the idea of getting, you know, a player that could take away from another starter. So I said, you know, let me go ahead and get Van Jefferson. Other considerations were running backs, but I feel like we can, you know, attack that position a little bit later in the draft.
All right.
Yeah. With my 13th pick is Jalen Tolbert. Now, this pick has aged very well. Most of my draft has aged very well, except Brady, ironically, who's aging very well, but my pick of Brady did not age well. Jalen Tolbert did. Michael Gallup not going to be ready for the start of the season, though Gallup will be ready earlier than I thought he would be. Either way, Tolbert's going to be there in 3 receiver sets now that especially Noah Brown doesn't seem to matter, but Noah Brown getting hurt matters to Jalen Tolbert. He's had a great camp. He's getting better with every practice and every game, every snap. He's getting better and better and better. He's just a great football player. Never should have been available in the 3rd round, and this Cowboys team is going to play fast, and they're going to throw a lot. This is going to be a potential career year for Dak Prescott, and Jalen Tolbert's going to be a big part of that.
All right, guys, pick 10 in the 13th round. I took quarterback Trevor Lawrence. Had a lost year as a rookie, but we will chalk that up to the horrible coaching that he had there. You know, with bringing in Doug Peterson, that's going to be a huge upgrade. They brought in more talent as well. They added Christian Kirk, Zay Jones, Evan Ingram, nice upgrade. You know, he's going to get Travis Etienne back, his college teammate there in the passing game. So, You know, people forget too, he ran for over 300 yards last year and 2 touchdowns. Rushing is there. You know, he hasn't lost the arm talent. You know, it's just the coaching there was so abysmal. Urban Meyer was absolutely terrible. So Peterson will certainly be more involved with that passing game. And I think that he's going to take a huge step forward this year. So I took Trevor Lawrence as my QB2 in this draft.
Hey everyone, Pat Fitzmaurice of Fantasy Pros, and with my 13th pick in the FFWC Video Showdown. At 13-11, I took Corey Davis, wide receiver, New York Jets. And it's been kind of a star-crossed NFL career for Davis so far. His career has not really achieved liftoff, and things are looking pretty murky this year with the addition of rookie Garrett Wilson, with Elijah Moore possibly poised to break out after a promising 5-week run in his rookie campaign. It remains to be seen where that leaves Davis, but we're still talking about a guy who was a top 5 NFL draft pick. There's still some talent, even if he has, struggled with injuries and, is not ever going to be the superstar they were hoping he would be, but still have some talent. We'll see how he fits into this Jets offense. The passing game still a work in progress with Zach Wilson and some new pieces. Hopefully Corey Davis can have a few spike weeks for me. He's my 7th wide receiver, so I'm not really counting on much more than that.
With the 12th pick in the 13th round, Best Ball Fantasy Podcast selects Tyrion Davis-Price, running back out of San Francisco. And Davis Price was selected in the 3rd round, 82nd percentile 40-yard dash, 90th percentile speed score. This is a fast player, built big, 6 foot 219, and he's still running that fast. Yes, he's gonna fit the role better than Trey Sermon did last season. So this is not Trey Sermon 2.0. This is insurance behind Elijah Mitchell, who we saw be explosive and yet sustain a lot of injuries because he's a smaller back. So the Tyrion Davis-Price is Elijah Mitchell insurance, and this might be the player to take over once again if Elijah Mitchell gets hurt. And that's what I'm trying to target with these later round running backs are high upside, high volume, because we know that San Francisco is going to give high rushing volume to their running backs, high volume plays.